But so like I was wondering, John, what would you say is another like good quality for a leader is that you've noticed through your study of history?
I think it's an ability to listen. That's not only is it communicating, but it's also understanding the problems that the people underneath, that you represent, that maybe you don't necessarily represent, but your decisions affect, understanding their context or situation there before a decision gets made. Now, sometimes you make a decision that they don't appreciate, but that doesn't mean that you can't still listen to them. People appreciate being listened to.
Right. I mean,
I don't
I
know.
could.
What do you think?
So, I mean, one of the things that I noticed the most is like the best leaders are like they read like madmen and they write.
Hmm.
So, like, they have to be like, they have to focus in that. James Madison, he read all of history, it seems like, right? He read anything that people would go. He was writing his letters to Jefferson. He was writing letters to um, the Federalist Papers, right? You look at
Hmm.
Lincoln, he read a lot. Ronald Reagan read a lot. Teddy Roosevelt read a lot. Teddy Roosevelt was writing books about nature like as soon as he like was able to like be an adult. I mean, he was writing historical books about the Navy and John Adams, right? And he deplored Thomas Jefferson, right? um, and what that did for them is it allowed them to, by being a student of history, they were able to layer the problems on top of each other. They were able to see what happened in the past and try to make better decisions for the future. And then the other thing it does for them is it helps them communicate, right? FDR was a reader. And if you study these people, this is where they excel. James Madison excelled in the art of communication. Now, he is different than the rest of the leaders on the list because his art of communication was to like a small structure in his intellectual circle. That's why I think he is
Hmm.
harder for regular Americans to grasp his like brilliance than the other leaders. But that's who he had to reach, right? That was his target
Yeah.
market back then. You look at Lincoln, he was a masterful communicator. He was able to have these homespun stories that related to people that drew them in. What did Teddy Roosevelt do? He was able to use the bully pulpit, explain problems to the regular everyday citizen. He walked the streets of New York, right? Like, even though Teddy was like born of a higher class society, he understood the
Right.
value of everyday citizens and he made sure he put his feet in those shoes and he walked the same walk that they did so he could better lead them. Same thing with FDR. He had the fireside chats. And what was the thing about FDR that brought him to the people was his getting polio because this guy was super privileged, right? Like just
Right.
way
He was
privileged. Um, but he gets
Upper
polio.
East Side, Upper West Side, something like that.
Yeah, he gets polio and he he goes for treatment and he kind of connects with all these polio patients. He ends up spending a lot of his time and his money on helping that clinic, build out to help people. And I think what he learns from that is he's able to take all of that knowledge that he's gained from being a student and learn how to communicate through his skills that way. And then he's able to take it and communicate to the American people. And
Hmm.
that's what makes a really great leader.